Alright, part 4, the 84 K20 LS swap. Got my gas tank here. This is an 87 Chevy gas tank. The reason I'm using an 87 is because it has baffles in it. You can see the 84 gas tank that I was going to use the original gas tank because it's in good shape and everything, but it doesn't have any baffles. So once you get down a quarter tank of gas, you start having issues with fuel delivery, starving the fuel pump and stuff. You don't want that. So I went ahead and got this gas tank here. It was pretty cheap. It'll be definitely worth it. You can run it down a little lower instead of having to put gas in it every time it gets down under half. I got my fittings here. I suppose I should talk about the sending unit first. 87 Chevy truck sending unit as well. Using a AC Delco EP381 fuel pump. Same fuel pump I have on the 72. It's kind of tried and true for me. I've had that on there for 5 years and it still works like the day it was new. Still good fuel pressure and everything, so I went ahead and got one of them since I know it'll be good. And that is actually a direct bolt on to the sending unit, and it'll give you your 58 or whatever 60 psi that you need to run the LS. These are AN fittings here with a compression fitting on one end. So what I'm going to end up doing here is on my sending unit, you have your little nipples here to put hose on. Now you don't want to use hose with a high pressure, so I'm going to be cutting off the little bubble on the ends and putting these compression fittings on. Got a 5/16 one there. There's the part number for the 5/16, and then the part number for the 3/8 for the feed and return. Feeds 3/8, returns 5/16, and that goes to the AN6 side, which I'll be running my stainless braided line to. And you're probably wondering, compression fittings, usually you don't use that kind of stuff on fuel system and brake lines and anything like that, but these are actually specifically made for fuel systems. These are really, the good quality. This is what you want. You don't want to cheap out on this. You don't want to get just any random compression fittings. These are rated at like 250 psi, so there won't be any problems there. There shouldn't be anyway. And that's basically it as far as this side of the fuel system goes. On the fuel rail side, we have these fittings here. These are just the push lock fittings with AN on one side. I'm going to show you what you really want to do on this side if you're working on one of these. I never trust these clips. They can actually push in fairly easily and the whole thing can pop out, and then you got a bad recipe that could burn your vehicle down. So what I do is I get a hose that is just the right size to fit between those little, see those little whatever teeth there that stick out a little further. I find a piece of hose that fits right between there, and I press it up tight against this fitting, and I put some hose clamps on it, and that keeps those from coming up and being able to push out. And I'll show you what I'm talking about since I got two other LS swap vehicles that I did the same thing on. And then I got an Earl's fuel filter. It's the kind that you can clean. It's got the AN6 on it also. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Hard to see the hose, but the hose is pressed up right in between those raised the part that sticks out further. That keeps it from coming off. It kind of sandwiches it in there. That way this will not be able to pull out. It's a good little extra security. It looks pretty janky, but it's a heck of a lot better than having those come off and causing a bad fire. You don't want 58 psi of gas spraying everywhere. Not good. I can't take credit for coming up with this. I found a video on YouTube of a guy on there. I forgot the name of the channel, but whatever that channel is, special thanks to him for making a video on what everything he used for his square body. Because I wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and I watched his video. I was like, yeah, that'll work for me. That's exactly what I want. So I ended up getting all the parts that he got, and so I can't take credit for this recipe. Feel free to use it and whatever. Just don't give me credit for it. Someone else a lot smarter than me came up with everything. So anyway, I'm gonna get to work. I'm gonna pull the old gas tank out. I think what I'm gonna do is cut an access panel in the corner for getting to my sending unit and fuel pump. Alright, I thought I'd show the finished fuel pump, or yeah, fuel pump sending unit combo here. Fuel pump, actually the connector is the same as the 87 fuel pump would have, so it plugs right in, plug and play. Even comes with the pigtail if you need it. I'm gonna save that. Good to have a spare fuel pump pigtail if you need one, you know. You never know. So just gonna make sure everything is good to go before I drop it in there. Like I said, I'm gonna cut a hole in the bed just in case I have to take this apart for some reason. Looks good to me. I'm gonna cut those little bubbles off when I get it in there. That way it'll be stationary and won't be moving them around on me. I don't want to accidentally cut anything else. So I'm gonna drop it in there. Everything's all assembled. I got these on. Compression fittings. I didn't, you know, you gotta make sure not to over tighten these. I just got them what felt right, and should be good to go. They're just, you know, they're aluminum, so you gotta be careful. I did have to modify one thing. I had to cut the little brackets off under these. Well, you can see what it looked like originally with this the vent here. It was just right in the way, so I had to cut them off, but there's really no room under them anyway for it to move. Like, even if this moved down and bent down, it's not gonna bend far enough to kink this or damage it, so it should be fine. I'll just make sure the rest of the line is well supported. Hopefully they don't leak. I've never used those before, so see how it goes. Seems like everybody's had good experience with them, so I think it'll be fine. All the people that have square bodies and are used to working on them and know more about them than I do, probably thinking, what an idiot. You can't cut a hole right there. First of all, there's a support there for the bed. Second of all, the sending unit lands right there between the cab and the bed, so that's not gonna happen. So no hole in the bed. Just gonna have to do it the hard way. So what I'm gonna do is probably just gonna end up cutting these bolts off, since there's no way they're gonna probably come off, and I'll just put some new bolts in. I probably want to do that anyway, just, you know, make it easier to take off down the road if I have to, instead of reusing the old ones with the rusty threads and stuff. First thing I'm going to do is drop the tank down. Now, I could do this without taking the bed off if I ran a small piece of fuel line like this to the inside of the frame, so I can get a wrench on it once this is up in there. But I like to do it all in one one line other than the, you know, the connections for the fuel filter. So I really don't want to do that. Have more fittings and places that could leak. So I'm just gonna put this up in there and then raise the bed so I can connect my fuel lines. I think that's the easiest way. Alright, before I pull the bed off, I'm gonna look into something here, because I'm comparing the two tanks. I didn't realize that I had a 20-gallon tank in there. This is a 16. I thought that's what this truck had, but that's alright. Doesn't really make any difference to me. Well, I ended up pulling the bed off. Got the gas tank installed. Looks pretty good. Let's see what I'm talking about. Kind of falls halfway under the cab, so tank would have to be dropped anyway if you wanted to replace the fuel pump or something. But what I'm gonna do, I thought about it for a little while and then came up with an idea, which is pretty simple, and I'm surprised I didn't think of it right away. But anyway, usually your fuel line on these trucks would be run inside the frame rail, right? You know, up to your engine. But I'm going to run it on the outside of the frame rail along there and up to the engine. That way the gas tank can be dropped all the way down. You'll have that slack once you take all the clamps off of the fuel line. You'll have that slack to drop her down and change the fuel pump. That's the easiest thing to do. Just run it right up through there, between the shock and the cab there, right up through there. Also, it's better because it's not going to interfere with my clutch linkage either. Just run it up here and then put a 45 or 90 swivel fitting on this side and go into my fuel rails, and that should work out pretty dang good. Here's my list. I already got quite a few things crossed out. I've got a hitch. I got a B&W Class 4 hitch. Check out this one here. Somebody just took a piece of channel and welded it on to this janky thing that's just bolted here. And then look at those popcorn welds. I hope nobody actually towed with this, but all that's going to be being cut off and install this beautiful unit right here. Class 4 hitch, 16,000 pound. It's like 1,600 pound tongue weight, 16,000 pound rating. So I can safely and comfortably tow, not have to worry about my hitch. That's one thing I don't mess around with. I used to build hitches when I was a welder. I built a lot of hitches, but I was somewhat of a professional, so to say. I'll just use that word loosely, you know. Have a few years of welding experience and my welds look pretty good. But if your welds look like that, I would not try to build a hitch. Practice on other stuff. Practice on your, you know, body repair or exhaust, something that's not structural. That's a pretty structural thing right there, and if you lose a trailer going down the road, not good. So I would try to build one myself, but it takes way too much time and it's worth it. Just you actually save money buying one. So just went ahead and got one, and that's that. So I'm gonna swing back over here and I'm gonna put my starter in and start working on my battery cables. Negative is obviously pretty simple. Goes straight over here, and I'll probably run it. It looks like a good spot right there, right near my temperature sensor. Some people say that you're supposed to tie the battery cable into the block, but I've used the head. I think actually both of my other vehicles are grounded off the head and I haven't had any problems whatsoever. So It's just easier. There's usually some extra holes in the head to hook it to.